So it seemed like it's been a while since I made a what's in my backpack video. The first one was incredibly popular, second one also relatively popular, so I figured I'd make a third and final one since I don't see the contents of my backpack changing within summer and fall, which are my last 2 semesters, and we're almost done with spring now. Got 2 weeks left. So let's hop into it. Still the same backpack, which I've now had about 10 years. It's a larger JanSport. I still have it waterproofed, which I use shoe waterproofer for. I empty out all the contents, and once a year I will spray it on every surface in here. So there's multiple pockets. There's a large front pocket and a large back one, and even this thin stuff I will waterproof from both sides. In Florida it rains a lot. In the summer it rains at least once a week, if not more often, and sometimes it's very unexpected, and the last thing I want is to lose, you know, dozens of hours worth of notes, and it would be basically impossible to recreate those. So waterproof JanSport that I've had forever. It's already been fixed one. I love this backpack. I'd be hard pressed to find one that I like more, I think. All right, let's start out with stuff. So I have flashcards. I don't always carry flashcards, but usually I'll carry them for some class. This is for topology. I had an exam yesterday, so I carried these to run through these a couple times beforehand. I have what I like to call my Gucci pencils. These are Bic Velocities. These are 0.9. I don't usually like fine point, but when I'm at work working with kids and writing stuff for them a lot, I like to have something that's really comfortable. It has one of these nice gel grips, and it's got a nice fat eraser on it because I need to erase stuff a lot for kids. So I have 2 of these. They're not that expensive. They're like $5 for a pair, and they come with a good bit of lead and like 5 or 6 extra erasers, which are pretty hefty. They'll last me a while. A spare zebra Del Guard, which is pretty fancy. It's got this mechanism in it that I've talked about in previous videos that keeps your lead from breaking off if you put too much pressure on it at an angle. Just a spare. Still have my 2 Pilot G2 .38 pens. I don't usually take notes with these directly while I'm in class because I find that with really fine point pens like 0.5 and smaller, because I also have a .28 in addition to this .38, which I no longer carry. If you leave the tip out for more than a few minutes without writing, it'll really easily dry up, and it's a hassle to get it going again, and then I'm falling behind taking notes because most of the time I'm already scribbling pretty furiously because the professors I have right now, they write very quickly and they also talk pretty quickly, and they usually talk at the same time as they write, and they're not always saying the same thing as they're writing. So what I do usually take notes with is a Uniball Signo. This is a 0.5 and it's gel, so it writes considerably more smoothly than the G2 in my opinion, and it's a bit more comfortable, but this is what I usually take notes in because I can just whip them out and I don't have to worry about leaving the tip out and it drying out after more than 30 or 45 seconds. So I carry 2 G2s and 2 Pilots. Both, I guess you could say, are relatively expensive when we're talking about retractable pens, but in my opinion, paying, you know, $10 for 4 of these is totally justifiable, especially when they're refillable, and I can buy refills on Amazon for pretty cheaply. So I got my Chapstick, which is kind of more important during winter than summer. Got extra lead for my big pencils that I use for tutoring and erasers. Have a highlighter. I don't usually use this while I'm actively taking notes. This is I guess you'd call that a wedge point, so you can, it's like bold. But I do use this when I'm making my final form of my notes. So the notes that I take in class are very rushed, they're not very organized, my penmanship is awful because I'm too busy racing down the page. But usually, or in this semester, at least for topology, a form of my studying includes rewriting my notes. So once I do that, I'll do that with the really fine point G2 so that I can draw things precisely and everything else, and it looks a little better. And then I'll highlight definitions, keywords, and really important theorems, etc. I also carry a power bank. This is a 7.4 watt hour. This will last probably 2 or 3 complete charges for my phone. I very rarely use it, but it's nice to have. I also lend it out to other people who don't know how to plan their lives. In addition to that, I have this flash drive and flash drive holder, which is made by Case Logic. It's attached to my backpack, so it's very difficult to lose, and it's Velcro closed. And I carry a, this is 32 or 64? 64 gig, just standard SanDisk Cruiser. These are pretty cheap. These are like $6 or $7. It's not a 3.0, which means the read-write times are slower, but I'm never in a rush when I use it. And I don't honestly use it for school, but when I'm moving stuff for like my parents or my friends or pictures, like when I took photo shoots for my brother-in-law and whatnot, it's a lot easier to move pictures that way than to try and email 300 high-res pictures that would take all year. Then I also carry a 6-foot braided charging cable for my phone and a associated brick, because I'm paranoid. It's literally never happened to me in my life, but I'm unreasonably paranoid about losing power to my phone when I need it most. I can't even imagine a time when that would happen, and it would be devastating to me, but I like to be prepared. Middle pocket is saved for a hoodie. This is usually the only one I take to school because I don't really care about it. If something happens to it, gets lost or otherwise ruined or whatever. I like a hoodie because until recently, for the past, I don't know, 8 years, I've been shaving my head. I've just been kind of lazy the past couple weeks. And it's really easy to get cold when you don't have any hair on your head. So I like that it's a hoodie. And a lot of my classrooms get really cold, like 65, which is very cold for me, especially when you're sitting really still. You're not moving around at all. It's really easy to get cold. And then I have a Moleskin. This is I want to say this is an 8x5, and I have the graph paper version. I'm not sure if you can see that, because I like to make bullet points. I don't use this as a to-do list for things I need to do today, generally speaking. I'll usually make a list for the whole week, or let's say things I need to accomplish by Saturday night. So that might include certain errands I need to do, mow the lawn, other random errands that I need to run, stuff like that. Whatever that may be, pay a bill or something like that in case I forget. So I can look at the whole list and see everything I need to do for that week if it's something that's out of the ordinary, like, you know, going to class or taking the trash out or something like that. So this is really useful. It's not very cumbersome. It's pretty light, but that's all I really use it for. And in addition, I have some stuff in the back that's just like long-term notes, like maybe books I want to read, or I have a list of, quote, questions that keep me up at night that I'd like to find the answer to at some point. And they're not straightforward questions at all. They're just things I've wondered that have popped into my head, and I'll write them down. And then when I was thinking about doing a podcast, I was writing podcast ideas, and just other random stuff that I push to the back. Programming projects that I've thought about. Just a place to keep them all. I don't really like taking notes on my phone just because I hate typing more than a sentence or two. So I'd always much rather write it down. I also have a planner, and I'm really particular about the planners that I use. I like the kind that shows an entire month at one time, because I don't write much for each particular day, so I don't need literally half a page for that. But I do like to see the whole month at one time, because there's a lot of things that I do that cover multiple months, like my work schedule for a month, or when I'm going out of town for several days at a time to my parents or my in-laws or whatever, or when I have to take the dog to the kennel, and other just random stuff that pops up. So within any given month I have a lot of stuff going on, but with any given day I usually don't. So I just like to see kind of long-term time. And as you can see, I like to put a cross through days so that if I'm not immediately aware of the date, I can just go to whichever day is not crossed off, make sure it's today, and either add something or see if I need to do something. I usually use this for exams and my work schedule. My class schedule I keep somewhere else, which I'll show in a minute. And I'll just keep other random notes off to the side, but usually nothing really important there. And then I'll have the start and end of semesters, when we plan on moving, all this other kind of stuff, when Anna's going back to school, etc., etc. So I like the monthly ones. I'm not big on the daily ones. And then lastly, or almost lastly, I should say, I have my folder. I only have one folder. Only need one folder. This is a 1-incher. I've thought about getting a metal binder that would last me forever, but they're literally like $30 to $40, and I can't justify that. Anywho's, I keep my schedule in front in case I forget, which I'll use probably mostly within the first week or two of class, but once I get into my routine, I don't have to think about what class I have to go to and where, especially if I have a class in a new building or a new classroom and I'm not sure where it is. I'll refer to it, and then I'll usually just keep it there all semester for whatever reason. And then I don't usually keep a lot of stuff in the front thing. Right now, the important thing I do have are my tentative schedules for, well, they're not tentative anymore because not registered, but my future schedules for summer and fall respectively, especially when I need to make sure I have all my appropriate credits for different types of minimum credits that you need for, you know, humanities, sciences, my math electives, etc. I have what elective it fills and all this other stuff just for reference. And then I have my dividers. I got one for every class. This is about to become several less because I'm only going to take 2 classes at a time this summer. But I'll have my notes for that class if I take notes in that class, which generally speaking I would. And then I'll keep usually 10 to 20 sheets of paper within that divider in those notes, so I don't have to constantly flip to the back of the binder to get another piece of paper. I can just write my notes and then continue on to the next one and flip it over, and it means I have to move paper within the binder a lot less. There's that. I also keep probably 20 or 30 spare sheets in the back just in case, but just like my phone charger, I've never found myself needing an additional 30 pieces of paper randomly, but I like to have it. It's not much extra weight, so it's not that cumbersome, and it's all in here. And then lastly, I have my calculator, which I don't usually, well, actually I don't use it for math classes, perhaps with the exception of vector calc or something like that, but I've absolutely used it and found it very helpful in probability, which I'm taking right now, because it does definite integrals, and I do a lot of those for continuous distribution probabilities and all that kind of stuff, so really handy. 20 bucks at Target, does definite integrals, derivatives, matrices, spreadsheets, vectors, extremely useful, and it has a pretty high-res screen, so I've yet to find a better bang for your buck. I love Casio calculators. Texas Instruments, overrated. But that's more or less it that I carry in there. I also have a water bottle that I carry from time to time, but usually not. It's usually a Monster in my hand, which is in a koozie, so my hand doesn't get cold and my drink doesn't get hot. But more or less, that is it. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.